explaining the eye, and I'd like to begin today by showing you the parts of the eye. If you looked in a mirror, you're going to see that this is the upper eyelid, and I told you last time that there is a gland in this area. It looks like this here, in just above the upper eyelid, which produces tears, and it is called the tear gland. It has another name, طبعا medical name, the lacrimal gland. But you can see the tear gland, of course. And here, this is the lower eyelid. And as you know that the upper and the lower eyelid are having eyelashes. Inside here, this is the conjunctiva, which I mentioned last time, that it is just a very delicate structure or a very delicate membrane that covers the whole eye. But because it is transparent, so it shows the white part of the eye, which is called the sclera, and this part is called the iris, and this is a hole which is called the pupil. Right. Here, there is a very small hole that is called the tear duct. So when I told you last time that the lacrimal gland or the tear gland, it produces tears, and whenever we blink or we cover the eye with our upper eyelid, so this tear film is going to wash the front of the eye. But what about the tears that are used up? They are going to drain inside this hole to the inside of the nose, because when we cry, we blow our noses, because the tears, part of them, they escape through this tiny hole, and this is connected with the nose from inside. That's why we blow our noses. Blowing the nose is full of tears, okay? Because the tears, they drain through this very small hole. Also, I explained something about the rest of the eyeball. I'm just making a review of what I mentioned last time. I explained that there is the sclera. This sclera is a tough layer that covers the eye from outside to prevent the folding of the eye. While the inner layer, or this layer of the eye, this is called the retina, and this is the most important part of our eye. Just behind the retina, there is a black layer, which is called the choroid. And I mentioned that this black layer, it is enriched with blood capillaries in order to provide the retina with nutrition and oxygen. Also, I said that it is black in color in order to absorb all the light, so that the light will not be scattered inside the eye, but will fall exactly on the retina. Now let's go to the retina, which is the most important. But all the eye parts are important, but this retina is the most important one because it contains receptor cells. Let me zoom this out again. This retina, it contains the receptor cells. Why is it? And I explained last time what are the receptor cells. These are specialized cells that are found in any part of our body in order to receive impulses and transfer them into, receive stimuli and transfer them into impulses. And these impulses, they pass through a sensory nerve. Now, here we have receptor cells that are going to receive light. So where does the light come from? It comes from outside the eye, because everything here is transparent, by the way. Yani, conjunctiva is transparent. This part, I'm going to explain it now. Everything is transparent, so the light will fall on the retina. So when light falls on the retina, the receptor cells detect this change, and then we'll send impulses along the sensory neurons. The sensory neurons here, they form all together a very important nerve, which is called the optic nerve. This optic nerve is connected immediately with the brain, or have a direct connection with the brain. This is one of the brain nerves that is in direct connection with the brain. When the light falls on the retina, so this is the stimulus, so the retinal receptor cells are going to translate this stimulus into impulses. The impulses will pass through the optic nerve to the brain. The brain is going to build up the image of the light that fell on the retina. It's the brain that tells us what we see. We just receive light. Right. What about the receptor cells that are found in the retina? The receptor cells are very sensitive to light of different colors and to the dim light as well. Of course, there are certain cells in the retina that are responsible of receiving the colors, and they are called the cone cells. I'm going to show them to you now. While there are receptor cells that receive the dim light, this is of course in bright light. Here they are going to receive the dim light, so we cannot see with them except black and white, and they are called the rod cells. Simply we can call them rods and cones. Now, cells that are sensitive to light of different colors, they can distinguish between the colors when to give us a clearer image, while the ones that respond only to black and white or responds to dim light, they will not give us a clear image. There is a part here in the eye, on the retina. Look at this groove. There is a groove like this. It looks like this here. This groove is called the fovea. But what is this fovea? It's a part of the retina, yes, but here the receptor cells are packed very closely together, and it is the part where the light is focused when looking at a straight object. Yani when you are looking at a straight object, you can see the sides of the eyes as well, but you are focusing in front. So when the light coming from the front of the eye and you are focusing at some objects just in front of the eye, so the light is going to pass like this to be to fall on this fovea. Right. What is this part of the retina? If you can see here that they gave it here a certain color, this is the same color, but here the color is different. Of course, here they made the color different because in this part there are no rods and no cones. Yani all the retina contains the rods and cones or the receptor cells, but this part only does not contain any receptor cells. So what is this part? This is called the blind spot. Why that? Because if light fell on this blind spot, you cannot see the image. Falling of light on this blind spot does not allow an image to be formed because there are no receptor cells here. How can the light be received? There are no cells. And here the blind spot is where the impulses leave the eye to pass through the optic nerve, through this blind spot. But let's let me explain something about the rods and cones, and later on I'm going to return back to this picture. rods and cones أو the receptor cells that form or that are found in the material of the retina. Now, I'm going to add a picture for these cells. Here are they. Of course, this is a hand-drawn picture. يعني they look يعني like this, but not يعني this is of course hand-drawn just to describe what how do they look like. But here, if you can see, these are the fibers or the sensory fibers that form the optic nerve. It means that the retina is here. Okay, this is the surface of the retina, and these are the rods. This is a cone. Look at the difference in shape. These looks like rods like this, but these look like cones from here. And of course, this is not a cone at all. طبعا الكون بس بيبقى wider from one part and very narrow from the other one. And this is a cone, yes. Altogether, this is called the cone cell, and altogether these are called the rod cells. Let me begin by the rods. This is the wall of the retina, or the outer covering of the retina. Now, if I just said that the rods, they respond to the dim light. And also I said that they are responsible for seeing black and white or black and gray. يعني الوايت ما بيبقاش very clear يعني. طيب, can the rods respond to colors or to see colors? No. They are just specific for seeing in the dim light. It means that if you lit, for example, the lamp, or you are found in the sunlight, so the rods are not receiving anything. They are responsible just to see in this dim light. Yes, Kenzie.
يعني دلوقتي يا دكتور في difference between الكون والرد عشان اتلخبطت.
ايوه في difference. ما انا بقول لك الرادز بتشوف بس في الديم لايت. What is the meaning of dim light؟ لما يكون الضوء ضعيف جدا، او لما تكوني انت داخله اوضه وطافيه النور بتبقي شايفه، بس شايفه الوان، شايفه حاجه بوضوح. No. So this is the responsibility of the rods. لكن انت لو فتحتي النور، so this is bright light, you are going to use your cones back, because you are looking at in bright light that shows you the colors. فهمتيها دلوقتي؟
اوكي تمام.
اوكي، يعني دي responsibility بتاعت الرودز ان هي تشوف في الديم light, while the cones they can see in bright light only. والrods cannot work if there is bright light, والcones cannot work if there is dim light. عشان كده لما بتدخلي اوضه ضلمه وانت شايفه something يعني shades of gray and black، هل قادره تشوفي colors؟ لا، because the cones are not working. فالrods بتعمل they work in dim light, while the cones they work in bright light only. ف if there is dim light هيبقى في black and white colors in front of me، لكن هنا بيبقى في colors واضحه. هنا بتبقى الايمج is hazy او unclear، مش شايفه كويس، لكن here the image of course is clear. اوكي، فالديتيلد image when the rods are used لا ما بتبقاش واضحه ابدا. That's why I just said that the rods are give me an unclear image. طيب لما الrods they receive light او dim light like this coming from outside the eye, so these rods, these are the receptor cells. It means that they are going to receive the stimulus, and I said last time stimulus is a change or the amount of light falling, even if it is dim light, there is something falling on the eye. So these rods, they are going to transform the impulse into the stimulus into impulses that are going to pass like this. طب لو واخدين بالكم دي ايه؟ دي sensory neuron اللي خدناها المرة اللي فاتت، وقلت ان السنسوري نيورون الهيد بتاعتها بتبقى in the middle، ومش اخدناها كده ان بيبقى في in the middle البودي سيل وكده النيرف اندنج وكده النيرف اندنج، دي sensory cell sensory neuron يعني. وبعدين الامبلسز بتبتدي تعدي through a synapse وتروح على sensory neuron تاني again، والنيورونز دول they form the optic nerve. يعني last time I told you that the nerve is a collection of nerve fibers، وقلت ان النيرف fibers دول الاكستنشن بتاع النيورونز. فهير the impulses they are going to pass like this through this sensory neuron, and then here there is a synapse وتدخل على النيرف فايبر بتاع الاوبتيك نيرف. المره اللي فاتت قلت لكم ان النيرفز بتبقى عباره عن something that looks like a rope وتلاقيها من جوه كلها nerve fibers. اهم ده nerve fiber coming منين؟ from the rods. طيب what about the cones بقى؟ and طبعا I give you now an idea ان ال cones they work best in the bright light, they can distinguish the colors. وبلاقي كمان ان when the bright light falls on the cones, so these cones they are receptor cells هما كمان that are going to receive the light as a stimulus which changes the light into impulses. This is again a sensory neuron, and it passes the impulse into a synapse ومن السينابس على الفايبر بتاعت الاوبتيك نيرف. ف all whether cones or rods they collect at the end in the optic nerve. يعني أنا لو كملت كده لكل ال rods and cones هلاقي إن this is the optic nerve كده connected to the brain ومليان من جوه neurons from the rods and from the cones. كل ده بيروح على البرين, and it is the responsibility of the brain to tell you what is this, to translate what's the meaning of the light that fell on your eye. طيب تعالوا نمسك كده مع بعض الكونز. الكونز I just said that they respond to colors. طيب أنا مش عايزة خلاص البيكتشر دي anymore. Let's go here to the cones. الكونز I said that they receive the colors or they can see the colors, but we have from physics, you know this, 3 primary colors. Can anybody tell me what are the primary colors? Have you learned this in physics? What are the primary colors, يا جماعة؟ ولا you didn't learn about them? في message I get. Red, blue, and green يا عبد الرحمن. Yes, you can see, yes. Red, blue, and green. لا اليلو يا عبد الرحمن is a secondary color. It's not primary. فأنا عندي هنا red, blue, and green. This means that we have 3 types of cones. One type is going to recognize the red, is going to receive the red light. Red light على فكرة, not color. Take care, this is a colored light because it's coming from the sun. A blue light is going to be received by another type of cones. A green light is going to be received by a 3rd type of cones. وزي ما قلت قبل كده ان at the fovea اللي هي ال part of the retina that was grooved like this, I said that here all the cones are packed, so when you look straight forward you can see a sharp colored image. يعني if you are looking straight forward to something colored, you can see it properly. You can see, yes, at the sides, but the image is not very clear because fovea receives the light when you look straight forward to an object or to a colored object. Why? Because cones are packed too much here. Okay? Right. Let's return back to this picture. Yes, this one. To see the other parts of the eye. Let's go to the front of the eye بقى. خلاص, I explained the back of the eye. Let's go to the front of the eye. Here, I showed you at the beginning a picture of the eye from in front. And I said that there is a colored part of the eye here and this colored part, it has a hole inside. By the way, the eye pupil is a hole that shows a black color. But what is the black color that shows up from the pupil يا كنزي? What is the black color? يعني pupil ده عبارة عن hole. Why do we see it black? What does it show inside the eye? What is black at the back of the eye? مين عارف؟ يلا البيكتشر قدامكم اهي. Where is the black layer of the eye? طب عبد الرحمن؟ No, not the blind spot. خد بالك. الblind spot here, there are no rods and cones خالص. But we have the choroid, and I told you before, it is black in color to prevent scattering of light. It absorbs any light that falls on it. So when we look through on our eyes, we see this black color. هنا في hole يا جماعة. يعني البيوبل ده it is just a hole. It shows the black choroid at the back. الblind spot يا عبد الرحمن, it is called blind not because it is black. No, it is called blind because it does not contain whether rods or cones. So whenever light falls on the blind spot, you are not going to see anything if the light falls on the blind spot. Yes, Kenzie.
طب دلوقتي يا دكتور مثلا لو حد عينه مثلا بلو فساعتها تبقى الكرويد مثلا لونها بلو؟
لا مش الكرويد على طول لونها بلاك. ليه بقى؟ انا هفهمك حاجه، ما انا لسه ما كملتش. بصي بقى, if you are looking to the front of the eye وحد عينيه blue, you are seeing this part blue. This is the colored part. بس inside it there is a hole. This pupil is a hole. يعني احنا مش لما نبص على عينينا بتلاقوا حاجه سودة في النص، نقطه سودة كده كبيره. This is called the pupil. This is just a hole. While the colored part is called the iris. يعني الناس اللي عينيها زرقاء او خضراء او هيزل او براون او whatever, this is the color of the iris. طب ايه الاسود اللي في الوسط ده؟ This is a hole that shows the back of the eye. It shows the choroid. بصوا يا جماعه هنا انا عندي this is the hole. Look at this part. This is a hole. فif light is coming like this, light passes to show you the black color of the choroid. لأن الكورنيا زي ما قلت لكم قبل كده it is transparent. فالchoroid, the black color of the choroid is showing. if somebody is looking at your eye, looking at your pupil, they are going to see the black choroid at the back of the eye. يعني if you looked in a mirror and saw this black pupil in the middle of your iris, you are looking at your choroid. It is a hole that shows inside the eye. Okay, because as I said few minutes ago that everything here is transparent. So when you look in a mirror, you are going to see your choroid. This is the only colored part. وبعدها السكليرا white in color. بس طبعا the choroid is in front of the sclera. That's why we do not see it. We do not see the sclera. We see the choroid only. فالcolored part of the eye, it is called the iris. Here it is. This part and this part. طب ليه عاملة كده؟ Because this is a section in the eye. أنا قطع الeye بالطول. عشان كده I can see it as two layers like this, or two parts. لكن if you looked from in front, أهي, I'm cutting it longitudinally. That's why I can see it in two parts like this. The middle is a hole, أهي, and this hole is called the eye pupil, or you can simply call it the pupil. طب why the iris looks colored? Because it contains a pigment. Pigment يعني لون أو صبغة معينة, a stain. It contains a pigment, and this pigment is going to absorb the light. فما يقدرش اللايت أبدا إنه يدخل عن طريق الإيريس to the inside. يبقى معنى كده the light is going to find the only hold part to enter from. لما اللايت ينزل كده على الإيريس it will be absorbed. لما ينزل اللايت كده على الإيريس it's going to be absorbed. طب اللايت لما يدخل في الهول دي it's going to pass through عادي لأن there is nothing to absorb it. There is no pigment. This is just a hole. خرم وداخل منه اللايت. فهمتيها يا كنزي ولا لسه؟
اوكي تمام يا دكتور فهمتها.
اوكي يبقى لو أنا بتكلم على البيوبل I'm going to see that it is a gap or a hole in the middle of the iris. فأنا لو برسم الإيريس كده like this, like this is the iris, and here is a hole in the iris. So if the iris is colored, ما حدش عينه لونها عاملة كده خالص. يبقى this is a hole that is found inside this colored part. Okay? طيب. Sometimes you look at somebody, you see that this hole is very narrow. Very narrow hole. And sometimes you looked at it, you find that the hole is wide. It means that the pupil changes its diameter. Sometimes it is the diameter بتاعه بيبقى very small, and sometimes the diameter is very wide. It means that this pupil can be narrow hole and can be a wide hole. طب depending on what? On the amount of light. لو حد مثلا واقف in bright light, in bright sunlight, and the light falls on the eye, على طول هتلاقوا الpupil is going to be very narrow. طب why بقى? Because if there is very bright light, this is the sun مثلا, and the light is very, very bright. So when it enters the eye, it's going to damage or to harm this delicate retina. That's why the pupil becomes narrower, like this. I'm going to draw it in red. Becomes very narrow. طب why? To allow a little amount of light to enter in order to protect the retina. This is a kind, again, of reflex action على فكرة. يعني I explained the reflex action last time. This is a kind of reflex action. It is done without your will. When you are found in bright light, like the light of the sun, you see that your pupil is going to be very narrow. بيبقى رفيع جدا الهول in order to allow the least amount of light to enter through it to reach the retina. And this very little amount of light is enough to let us see colors even. this is a kind of protection. And last time I said that the reflex actions, they protect the body. Here we are protecting the retina against this very bright light type. If somebody is standing even in the shade, or in, for example, a room during the night, and you are lighting your lamp, فالامount او الintensity of light is not very strong like the sunlight, so we need the pupil to widen to allow more and more light to enter, so the retina can receive enough light to send impulses through the nerves. فده برضو ده هنا بقى ما فيش protection، لا بيبقى just for allowing us to see better. ان the pupil widens. if there is bright light, the pupil is going to narrow in order to allow less light to enter the eye. While in dim light, or even if you are standing in the shade, the pupil is going to widen in order to allow more light rays to enter the eye so we can see. هنا بيبقى عندي ده protection، لكن ده to allow better vision. widening and our opening and closure of the pupil, a widening and narrowing of the pupil is a reflex action, and we call it the pupillary reflex. طيب بس الpupillary reflex دهيت it is also called the iris reflex. طب what's the connection of the iris? The iris is just a pigmented part of the eye that absorbs the light. What's the function of the iris here with this closure and opening of the pupil? Let me put this picture to show you what's the connection. As you can see here that the pupil is narrowed, and here the pupil is very wide. يعني حتى it appears better in the in people that have light colored eyes. الناس اللي عينيها هيزل او بلو او جرين يبان فيها قوي الريفلكسز ده هي very very clear. يعني you see it clearly, very wide pupil or very narrow pupil. And by the way, this pupil is not that narrow، يعني بيبقى narrower than this. ساعات كنا بنقول عليه the pinpoint pupil، يعني pupil بيبقى very very narrow like the head of a pin. طيب what is the connection or the relation of the iris with the widening or narrowing of the pupil? I just said it is called the iris reflex or the pupil reflex or pupillary reflex. It means that the iris is controlling the size of the pupil. برضو ها if you looked here at the iris, look at this picture. Here they divided the iris, or they removed the upper part of the iris here. الرحمن هيقول لي لا دي كنزي the iris change also. لا يا كنزي it's not the هو بالتأكيد الايرس نفسه not the circumference بقى. circumference يعني كده، لا هو this part او ال thickness of the iris. يعني look at the thickness, look at the distance here and look at the distance here. Okay, لكن ال circumference يعني from here to here. It does not change. نعم
يبقى كده الراديوس
لا ولا الريجس لان الريجس كان وصل للوسط هنا. اوكي هو بيبقى السايز اوف ذا ايرس نفسه. اصل ده مش سيركل كامله فما اقدرش اقول ريجس. اوكي طيب خلوني اوضح لكم what's the connection between the iris and the pupil. If you can see here, this part of the iris is removed. Look at the inside. مش باينه قوي، مش عارفه حتى البيكتشر it's not very good يعني. الايرس it has two groups of muscles. خلوني انا ارسمها احسن، انا كده مش مرتاح. If this is the iris for example, and inside is the pupil. The iris has two kinds of muscles. Okay, the circular muscles, they lie around the pupil. الايرس ماتيريال نفسها معمولة من muscles. They are called the circular muscles, and these muscles surround, forming like circles around the pupil. These muscles, when they contract, they are called circular muscles. When these muscles contract, the pupil constricts. But what's the meaning of to constrict? Get smaller or wider? We've taken this in the blood vessels. Remember when I said vasoconstriction? What's the meaning of to constrict? To become narrower or wider? Nobody knows? Constriction means narrow, to become narrow. And there is another layer of muscles, another color, that radiate, as if radiating out of the pupil, like this. These are called the radial muscles. When these radial muscles contract, the pupil becomes wider. Okay? When the circular muscles contract, the pupil becomes narrower. When the radial muscles contract, the pupil becomes wider. If we are found in bright light, which muscles are going to contract, Ya Abdurrahman? If you are found in bright light, which muscles are going to contract? Yes, Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman, can you hear me? Don't know. I just explained it. Kenzie, when there is bright light, which muscles are going to contract?
The iris muscle.
Which one of them? I just said there are two types of muscles. But if there is bright light, what happens to the pupil? Narrow or wide?
Narrow.
طيب يبقى which muscle will contract?
البيوبل يعني كده؟
خلي بالك الماسلز مش في البيوبل. اوكي يا عبد الرحمن ثانك يو. الماسلز مش في البيوبل يا كنزي، الماسلز في الايرس نفسه. اوكي when the circular muscles contract, this means that the pupil becomes narrow. Okay, the pupil will constrict, it will become narrow. And when we are found in dim light, the radial muscles will contract and the pupil becomes wider. فاهماني؟ يعني لما يكون عندي bright light I said the pupil. وبعدين مع الموبايل ده بقى يا ربي اودي فين؟ هيقفل دلوقتي. معايا كنزي، انا قلت قبل كده لما حد يكون واقف في برايت لايت الاقي البيوبل بتاعه بقى very narrow. Why? Because the muscle, the circular muscle that surround the pupil, they contract. When they contract, the pupil becomes constricted or becomes narrow in size. معايا؟
تمام اوكي.
طيب ولما نبقى في dim light العكس بقى. the radial muscles will contract to pull the pupil so it widens. يعني هنا كأني بعمل pushing to this layer أو to this hole، بعمل لها pushing to the inside كده فبتبقى narrowed. لكن هنا radial muscles when it contracts it pulls this opening أو this hole فبتخلي البيوبل wider.
تمام اوكي.
اوكي طيب دايما when the circular muscles contract الradial muscles will relax والا هيبقوا as if they are يعني every muscle is going to make a competition with the other one. لا when one of them contracts لازم the other one will relax. اوكي طيب السؤال يا كنزي هنا in sunlight which muscle is going to contract, the circular or the radial?
The circular.
طبعا. طب what about the radial?
will relax.
Will relax. طيب عبد الرحمن in dim light or even in the light of a room when you light the lamp which muscle will contract? In dim light which muscle will contract? The radial. And what about the other one, the circular? It will relax. Very good. يبقى do we control the widening and closure of the pupils? No. This is a reflex action. And I said last time in the reflex action cannot be controlled. طيب سؤال كده صغير، هل الريفلكس اكشن دي is controlled by the spinal cord or the brain؟ ايه رأيكم بقى؟ انا عارفة ان ده مش في السيلبس ولا في الكتاب ولا اي حاجة، بس I want you to know how you think.
by the brain because
by
the spinal
the brain ولا spinal cord؟ قولي يا كده.
I think by the brain because the spinal cord
برافو برافو، لأن السباينال كورد بعيد. every reflex action in the head تبقى responsibility of the brain على طول. بس أنا مش عايزة أدخل في النقطة دي because this is not in your syllabus خالص. بس I want to give you a question to if you have a suggestion question. Suggest what controls this reflex action. The brain. أي حاجة from the neck to the rest of the body يبقى it is under control of the spinal cord بس, not the brain. But any reflex action in the head is controlled by the brain على طول. اوكي بس ده طبعا مش في الكتاب، لكن أنا I want to ask this question. لو جالي سؤال suggest where what is controlling this reflex action، ودي اللي قلت عليها the pupil reflex or the iris reflex. Why? Because it is controlled, the size of the pupil is controlled by the muscles that form the iris. طيب طيب let's go now to this picture again. If you can see here that this is this very thin layer, outer layer, this is the conjunctiva. خلاص, I explained it before. Here we have a look at this sclera. Up till here it is white. احنا لما وريت لكم picture of the eye from in front, I said this is the iris and here is a white color. This is the sclera. It shows from behind the transparent conjunctiva. But let's move with the sclera. It begins from here, very tough material, and it shows here, this is the white part that we see, this part, and then it continues. But is this part white? لا. This part of the sclera is transparent and it is called the cornea. نقول عليها بالعربي القرنية، يمكن حد سمع عنها. فالكورنيا is a transparent part of the sclera. طب بعد ما تخلص الكورنيا again a white part بتبقى اللي تحت كده and then continues as a white layer till the end. فhere I find a transparent concave shape. واخدين بالكم ان هي عند الكورنيا ما بقتش circular بقى، ابتدت تاخد concavity. يعني لو انا عملت كده it's going to be circular eye. لكن at the corneal area it becomes concave forward أو to the front. This is a transparent layer to allow the light to pass through. يعني لو اللايت ماشي كده لازم it will go through the conjunctiva, then the cornea, then crosses this area and then passes through the pupil. But what is this? This is an eye lens, convex lens. Okay, this is a convex lens, but it is not made of glass. It is made of a flexible material. And of course, it is transparent, so light is going to pass like this to fall on the fovea. And I said before, when light falls on the fovea, it gives me the clearest image. And this happens when you look forward. طبعا أنا هنا بفترض إن واحد نظره مش ضعيف. I'm not explaining something about short-sightedness أو long-sightedness. لا, healthy eye without any vision defects. The light, when it passes and falls on the fovea, it gives me a very clear image. طيب, how is the light focused بقى? We know from physics that when we focus light, we use lenses. مش كده؟ أنا لو عندي concave lens, I can focus the light on a piece of paper. طب ما هنا نفس الحكاية. I have a lens. If you looked at the cornea, it acts like a lens. مش الشكل ده شبه ده. طبعا نفس الشيء. هنا في concavity أو convexity لأن دي lens, and here is the same shape. And because the cornea is transparent, it acts as a lens. The light, in order to fall on the fovea, it has to refract. But what is the meaning of refraction of light? لحظة كده عشان مش مظبوط. بصوا يا جماعة, if this is a lens, وهشرح physics بقى ما ده اللي ناقص. This is the principal axis. فبلاقي ان اللايت, مش عارفه انتوا درستوا ده في الفيزيكس or not. If the light came like this, it does not bend. Change the direction طبعا يا عبد الرحمن. Yes, of course. بس through which part of the lens بقى يا عبد الرحمن؟ يعني if the light is coming like this on the principal axis here, it's going to move like this to be focused on the fovea. But what if the light came from here? It's going to bend in order to be focused. لو الحتة دي كانت الفوفيا here at this part, so it's going to bend to the center of curvature. Center of the lens, yes, towards the center, yes, of course. اسمها the center of curvature طبعا. طيب, what if the light came from here? Again, it's going to bend. مش عند the center of curvature, I'm sorry, it bends at and they meet at the focus. The center of curvature بتبقى أبعد شوية. Yes, you can, at the focus of the lens. طيب, يبقى معنى كده إن اللايت is going to pass like this. يا رب أعرف أرسمها صح. مش الأي lens is a lens. فلايت المفروض if it came straight forward, It's going to fall on the fovea. معلش جت بقى ايه، احاول مش عايزه اهي كده. طيب what if the light came like this؟ خلوني بس اشيل بقى ده خلاص ما دام اتفقنا على اللي هيحصل. What if the light came like this? Let me change the color. Like this. It's going to come here. It will be, it looks like this. What if the light came from below? It's going to refract like this. طيب suppose I'm looking at a tree. If this is the tree, for example, and because of the movement of light and refraction of light, look at this light. It comes from the top of the tree till here. عارفة اللي هيتكتب أنا. Yes, of course. فالtop of the tree will appear here or will fall here. The light coming from the top of the tree will fall here. And the light coming from the bottom of the tree will be here. This means that this tree زي ما عبد الرحمن قال إن هي it will be inverted. If it fell, the light fall on the retina. طب مين اللي بيعدلها؟ Yes, yes, of course. The brain is going to correct the direction of the upper part of the tree and the lower part of the tree. فلما كل الكلام ده يوصل للبرين, the brain is going to correct the image in front of me. يعني when you look at something, you do not see it inverted or upside down. لا, you see it in the correct position. لكن مين اللي عمل الكوركشن ده؟ This is the brain. A light fell on the eye inverted. لكن in the brain it's going to correct it and tell you even what is this. خلاص؟ يعني you are just looking at light rays reflected from objects. But the brain is going to tell you what are these light rays. This is a tree. يعرفنا احنا شايفين ايه. وبتبقى طبعا in its correct position او ان هي بتبقى يعمل لنا correction to the picture that we are seeing او للإيمج. معايا يا كنزي؟
ما حضرتك يا دكتور تمام.
اوكي طيب اشيل بقى كل الدوشه دي عشان فاضل لنا حته صغيره كده in the eye. بصوا بقى what about these؟ ايه دول؟ These are called chambers. Chambers, okay? In these chambers, we have certain type of fluid. الفلويد هنا بيبقى watery. It is called the humor. Okay? مفروض إن الwatery is called the aqueous humor, means the humor that is watery. ما aqua means water. aqueous humor means the humor which is watery. طيب this is طبعا transparent و colorless وكله. طب what about at the back هنا? This is again a humor but it is called the vitreous. مكتوبة اهي. The vitreous humor. طب what's the meaning of vitreous? Vitreous means glass. Ver بالفرنش يعني glass وفيترو يعني glass. لما أقول vitreous it means that it is the glass humor. طب there is glass in our eyes? Of course not. This is just a gelatinous material. So in order to differentiate between the texture of the humor here and the watery texture of the human there, they called it vitreous as if looking like glass. And again, this is transparent. So this means that light is going to pass through the conjunctiva, which is transparent, then the cornea, transparent, vitreous humor, transparent, eye lens, transparent, vitreous humor, transparent, to fall on the fovea. Yani during the pathway, the light is passing through several transparent objects. Type. What about this lens? This lens, we say that its function is fine adjustment. But what does this mean بقى؟ احنا يا جماعة when you use a microscope, you of course you both use the microscope, بيبقى فيه focusing knob at the side of the microscope. Type. When you rotate this focusing knob, what are you doing? You are focusing the picture on your eye. It means that you are adjusting the microscope. Sorry. Type. We adjust which part of the microscope? We adjust the lenses. Here, because there is a lens, so we can adjust the amount of light or the behavior of light on the fovea or on the retina. We are adjusting it, and I'm going to explain now what does this mean. Type. What's the meaning of adjustment or adjusting the focus? يعني I am adjusting the focus of this lens. لأن أنا لو جيت بقى عملت كده، عطيت كده ال principal axis, and here is the center of curvature, for example, of the lens, مش of the eye. So here is the focus. And I want the light rays to fall on the focus like this. Type. Of course, this is a focus of a lens of a certain thickness. بس the focus of the lens depends on where does the light come from. طب what does it mean? يعني this means that the focus of the lens can change. Type. And this is called adjusting the focus. So light may come, or the light rays يعني may fall on the eye either from a far distance or from a near distance. Yes, if light is coming, مثلا you're looking at a very far object, then the light is coming from a far distance, because we know that light that falls on the object, if this is an object and the light falls on it, it reflects back to our eye. So we can see this object. If this object is far away, it means that light is coming from a far distance. If this object is near, يبقى the light is coming to our eye from a near object. أنا بتكلم هنا على light that falls on the eye, whether it is coming from a far object or from a near object. If light is coming from a far object, it means that it comes from a far distance. So we know, again from physics, that if we have a lens and the light is coming from a far object, how can the light pass through the lens يا جماعة? Will it bend or not? أنا لسه قايلاها على فكرة. A light coming from a far object and it passes through a lens, is it going to bend or not? Of the eye طبعا, أو of the eye lens يعني. Accommodation ده عبارة عن إيه? This is an adjustment of the shape of the lens in order to focus the light from different distances. لو أنا عندي you are looking at at a near object، فببص الاقي ان if this is the normal size of the lens. I'm going to show you a picture now. If this is the normal shape of the lens, if you are looking at a near object، اللينز بتبقى thicker and shorter. طب ليه بقى؟ عشان تعمل لي more bending. عشان كده بنحس بcertain stress على الاي. If we are looking at a far object بلاقي ان اللينز بتبدأ تعمل كده، تبقى thinner and longer. طيب when you are looking at a midway distance الاي لينز بتبقى بطبيعتها الثيكنس بتاعها واللينث بتاعه بيبقى normal. This is called accommodation أو a change in the shape and thickness of the lens in order to look at near object. فهنا بتبقى الاي لينز بتبقى shorter and thicker عشان انا قلت لكم دي flexible، وفي حاجه كمان بتحركها، بس استنوا واحده واحده. يبقى shorter and thicker in order to allow more bending of light. لكن لما تبقى at a far object it becomes thinner and longer in order to allow less bending of light. طيب يلا نشوف pictures بقى ونشوف كمان ايه اللي بيعمل الكنترولينج او الموفمنت of the eye lens accommodation. اوريكم تو pictures كده، واحده من السيلبس الجديد واحده من القديم. ده من البوك بتاعكم 3rd edition. بصوا بقى هنا I have a near object اهو. فاللايت بصوا اللينز بقى شكلها عامل ازاي، thicker and shorter. فهتبدأ تعمل to bend the light more. يعني بتبصوا للانجل دي، لو انا عامله هنا كده السنتر، الانجل هنا هتبقى قد ايه؟ هتبقى less، يبقى في عندي bending more. لكن لو انا يبقى الفوكسنج هيجي على الفوفيا اهو. عملت فوكسنج على الفوفيا بعد كده للبيكتشر. طيب لو انا بص على a far object، بصوا اللينز بقت thinner and longer. لو جيت اخدت دي كده to know the angle هلاقي الانجل هنا بتبقى wider. طبعا هي مش واضحه قوي في البيكتشر دي، بس الانجل دي بتبقى wider فبيبقى فيه less bending of light. طبعا الديفرنس between the angles ما بيكونش a great difference. That's why maybe it cannot be, it's not very apparent here. لكن هنا عندنا less bending، لكن هنا بيكون في more bending. انا البيكتشر اللي انا كنت رسماها كانت واضحه اكتر من كده. طيب ايه اللي بيخلي اللينز تو be stretched وان هي تبقى thicker؟ عندي a muscle that is controlling this. اهي هنا مثلا I am looking هنا at a far object وهنا at a near object. ليه؟ لأن بصوا هنا السايز اوف ذا لينز وهنا السايز اوف ذا لينز بتاعها شكله عامل ازاي. طب ايه اللي بيعمل controlling أو that allow the lens to change its shape؟ A kind of muscle called the ciliary muscle. السيلياري muscle دي يا جماعة بصوا ده الايرس. السيلياري muscle بتبقى attached to the iris. طب تعالوا نبص كده هنا. This is the iris. السيلياري muscle اهي. بصوا الدايره دي، حد شايفها؟ دايما يرسموها صغيره قوي كده اهي. This is the ciliary muscle. خليها بالريد عشان تبان. This is the ciliary muscle. لو أنا بصيت للإيريس from in front كل ده ciliary muscle. It is surrounding the iris. طيب الciliary muscle is attached to the lens by a ligament. لو تفتكروا لما قلت كلمة ligament قبل كده، ligament, this is something that looks like a rope and it is mainly made of collagen protein mainly. فالليجمنت ده اهو اليلو بارت بيعمل connection ما بين المسل the ciliary muscle and the lens. فدي الاثنين دول they control the size of the lens. طيب لو حصل a tension او a tension on the this ligament, by the way, is called the suspensory ligament. It means that this is the ligament that suspends the lens and hold it in place. فلو حصل tension على ال suspensory ligament and the shape of the lens is changed by the ciliary muscles، لأن لو الciliary muscles عملت contraction it contracts يبقى بتزق نفسها كده. So the ligament is going to be slack أو loosened. فببص الاقي ان اللينز is going to be thicker. مفيش حاجة بتعمل لها stretching. Here is the muscle. وهير is the ligament اللي هو باين قدامنا yellow. فلو حصل contraction of these ciliary muscles بتزق نفسها أو pushes itself like this بتخلي الليجمنت to be slack أو to slackened أو بيبقى loosened. ف this will leave أو give the lens a freedom فتيجي تعمل نفسها shrinkage بترتاح بقى shrinked أو بتبقى shorter and thicker. But if the muscle relaxed يعني moves upward بالشكل ده it's going to pull the suspensory ligament and the suspensory ligament will pull the lens to be thinner and shorter. فبالشكل ده يحصل عملية accommodation. طب let me summarize كده كله. When a person is looking to a distant object بلاقي إن ciliary muscle will relaxes والsuspensory ligament will be stretched. فبلاقي ان اللens is going to be thinner and longer. Okay. طيب on the opposite side أنا عندي ال ciliary muscle will contracts وال suspensory ligament loosens will become loose أو slackened والlens will become بيسيبوها بقى براحتها ترجع تبقى كأنها was stretched and then it خلاص it is relaxed بقى حصل لها relief becomes thicker and shorter. مفيش حاجة بتشدها من فوق ولا من تحت، لا سايباها براحتها. طبعا هنا this is يعني this accommodation is only for focusing the image on the retina when you are looking at a near object or at a far object. لو في أي question على ال eye, I just finished the eye. ثواني كده. Any question about the eye? طيب. اوكي، اكيد دي كنزي اللي بتقول لي عارفه انا. It's fine. اوكي، عارفه انا. عبد الرحمن ما بيردش اهو رد بس لازم يستناني لما اقول اوكي. ولا انت صحيح بتقول لي بتكتب بالراحه. اوكي يا عبد الرحمن. Thank you both. طيب remember when I started explaining coordination, I told you that the coordination of an organism or a body, a human body or an animal body, depends on two systems, the nervous system and the endocrine system. Type. What is this endocrine system? It is a system like all systems of the body, but its organs are glands. These are the organs. يعني مثلا digestive system عندنا المouth والpharynx والesophagus والstomach والintestine. All these are organs. But here the endocrine system, its only organs are glands. And whatever بقى the gland is. طيب بس before I explain the glands, I have to mention that we have two types of glands. خلوني اخدها في بورد لوحدها كده. في some glands that form secretions, and these secretions they are poured in a certain place by a duct. But what's the meaning of a duct? A duct means a kind of tube or a channel. So the secretion will be poured in, for example, anywhere, like the mouth, مثلا, like the duodenum. These are called, they are not endocrine glands, they are called exocrine glands. Why? Exo means outside. It means that the secretions, they will go outside the gland through ducts. The other type of gland, it makes secretions, but these secretions, they are directly poured in the blood, and the blood takes them to certain places. Where these glands, because they do not use ducts, they are ductless glands. Because they do not use ducts. There is a scientific term for the ductless glands, endocrine glands. Endo means على طول, inside the blood على طول. They do not need a duct. So their secretions, they are poured immediately to the blood, and then the blood will carry them to the places where the secretions can take an effect. Yani if I give you an example for these glands, the exocrine, I can, for example, say the salivary glands. I can say the pancreas, because we have taken before with liver. We have taken before in the salivary glands, they pour saliva in the mouth. But if the salivary gland is like this, so here is the duct and here is the mouth cavity. So saliva will be formed inside the salivary gland, it passes here and it pours in the mouth. البنكرياس بنفس الطريقة. When I was explaining the duodenum, I used to draw the pancreas like this, just below the stomach, like this. And here is the duct. The duct is coming from here, and the pancreatic juice moves like this. It's formed in the pancreas, and it moves like this and pours in the duodenum. The liver is the same. It produces bile, and the bile passes through channels or through ducts to collect in the gallbladder. All of these are exocrine glands. Type. What about the endocrine glands? No, they are different. This is the gland, and it is surrounded from all aspects by blood capillaries. So when the secretions are produced, they are going to pass immediately to the blood. Type. If I have, this is the surface of the gland, and this is the blood capillary. So the secretion is going to pass like this. Which type of movement is this, ya jama'a?
Diffusion.
Very good. Type. Abdurrahman, which type of diffusion? انتوا ما خدتوش دي ولا خدتوها؟ الفاسيليتيتد هي diffusion. خلاص never mind which type. never mind which type. لا دي كبيرة عليكم. by diffusion طبعا. طيب the secretions احنا طبعا كل شغلنا على دي بقى. Secretions of the exocrine glands, they are called hormones. طيب hormones they are produced from endocrine glands. طب what are hormones? الهرمونز they are chemical substances that are produced by a certain gland, and it is carried by the blood, as I just said, by diffusion طبعا. The blood is going to carry this hormone to anywhere that needs this hormone, and this anywhere is called the target organ. طب let me give you an example. مثلا we have a certain gland in our head called the pituitary gland. This pituitary gland secretes a certain hormone that's going to work on the bones in order to allow the bones to be longer. So the blood is going to take this hormone to the bones. So we say that the bones are the target organ for this kind of hormone. Target organ is the organ which needs the hormone. The blood is going to take this chemical substance or the hormone to the target organ. طب عبد الرحمن, which part of the blood carries the hormones? Which part of the blood will carry the hormones? ثواني افتح الشات بقى. Excellent. Plasma طبعا. This hormone, it dissolves in the plasma, so the blood can carry it to its target organ. بمعنى تاني ان الهرمون is a chemical substance that is produced by a gland. It is carried by the blood, dissolved in the plasma to transform or to transfer information from one part of the body to another. يعني أنا لو عندي gland هنا, it has certain information. جالها information from the brain to work, to produce this hormone. So the hormone is going to carry information from the gland to the target organs. So the target organs, لو هي البون مثلا, the bone will increase in length. زي الجروث هرمون. الجروث هرمون يا جماعة بيطلع من الجلاند دي, as if the gland is sending a message to أو an information أو an order to the bones to elongate. طب مين اللي شايل الأوردر؟ It is the hormone. طب what is carrying بقى the hormone? It is the blood. يبقى the hormone is a chemical substance produced by a gland and carried by the blood to transmit information from one part to another, or to the target organ. طب what are the glands that are found in our body? عندنا glands كتير. عندنا مثلا for example the most important او اكتر glands شغاله بقى على البودي معظمه الثايرويد gland. It is found in the neck. يعني at the front of the neck كده surrounding يعني just in front of the larynx. يعني this is the larynx. أخذنا طبعا الحاجات دي. This is the larynx for example وبعدها التريكيا. فالثايرويد gland بتبقى surrounding the larynx like this. Like this. This is called the thyroid gland. We have another gland that is called the adrenal gland, and it secretes the adrenaline. I know all of you know it. طب الادرينال gland دي فين؟ It is found just above the kidney يا جماعة. ادي الكدني اهي. الادرينال gland عاملة كده فوقها. This is the adrenal gland. عندنا كمان look at this, the pancreas. هتقولي لي الله طب ما البنكرياس كان an exocrine gland. البنكرياس is the only gland that works as an exocrine and endocrine. طيب when it works as an exocrine it produces the pancreatic digestive juice that contains بقى الانزيمز اللي هم اللايبيز والبروتيز والمالتيز. They are produced by the pancreas in the pancreatic juice. So this is a gland that works by pouring its secretion in a duct. لكن في other part of the pancreas that secrete two hormones, insulin hormone and glucagon hormone. Insulin hormone lowers the blood sugar level, while the glucagon, it raises the blood sugar level. So this means that the pancreas, it acts as an exocrine and endocrine in the same time. ويعني مش عايزة أتقل عليكم يبقى بقول إن البنكرياس is a mixocrine. طبعا مالناش دعوة بالأسامي دي يا جماعة. Mixocrine يعني it acts like a mixture ما بين both endocrine and exocrine. طب are there any other glands? Yes, of course. Ovaries in the female. The ovaries, they produce a hormone called estrogen. لسه هناخده بقى لما when we learn the reproductive system. The testis in the male produces a hormone called testosterone. All these are hormones that are produced from glands and carry chemical information to organs, certain organs which are called the target organs. طيب. Yes, Kanzi.
دكتور can you explain ان ازاي liver exocrine gland وهي اصلا organ في digestive system؟
طبعا طبعا. لو تفتكري انا قلت على البايل if this is the key. لا هي مش هي associating organ يا كانزي in the digestive system. If this is the liver like this, okay. طبعا دي liver بقى انا مدلعاها قوي. بتعمل secreting للبايل. لو انا بصيت بصوا طب جاست السكي لا يا ربي انا مسحت الفولدر. ادوني ثانيه اجيب لكم فولدر بتاع الاي كيو اي عليه البيكتشر دي حلوه قوي. جاست سكند. لسه ماسحه الفولدر النهارده من على الديسكتوب. قلت I don't need it. دي محتاجته. Where are the pictures؟ احنا كنا بنتكلم على ايه يومها؟ enzymes. اهي. اوكي. دي صورة جميلة قوي اهي. If you looked here you can see this is the liver. بصي الدكتس دي بتعدي البايل اهي the bile duct. البايل بعد كده it is collected here in the gallbladder to be stored when needed بتطلع برضو في البايل duct بقيتها. يعني look here, this duct is connected to the material of the liver. هي دي داخله جوه الليفر not on the surface. فالبايل when it is formed it passes inside these ducts لحد ما كله يتجمع في main bile duct. وطبعا the bile will pass here in order to be stored. when it is needed تبتدي تخرج على الجوجينم. pancreas اهي, this is the pancreatic duct وجايه through to pour in the duodenum. اوكي, فدي ده معناه ان الليفر is an exocrine gland because it pours its bile through ducts to pour طبعا في الجوجينم later on.
اوكي تمام يا ثانك يو.
اوكي you're welcome. طيب يلا نتكلم بقى على adrenaline which is the hormone produced from the adrenal gland that is found on top of the kidney. Both kidneys طبعا. الادرينالين طبعا it is secreted directly into the blood if there is a kind of danger or stress. يعني the adrenal gland, yes, it secretes adrenaline, but the amount of adrenaline increases when there is danger or when there is stress. Type. What is controlling this adrenal gland? Why does it produce large amounts of adrenaline when there is danger or when there is stress? Because it receives impulses from the brain along a nerve bar. يعني if I have the brain like this, it's going to send impulses along a nerve to the adrenal gland. ده من البرين على طول رأسا يعني. Through a nerve to the adrenal gland, so the adrenal gland will produce adrenaline hormone. طب why? During danger or stress. على فكرة, they call the adrenaline, they call it the hormone of fight or flight. معناه ايه الكلام؟ ان if there is a danger, either you are going to fight and face the danger or you are going to run away. فعشان كده they called it the fight or flight. For your own information يعني it's the for your own knowledge يعني in when they first discovered adrenaline, they discovered it in dogs. The dog either runs away or attacks. Later on they discovered the same kind of hormone in humans as well. If you and it has certain effects لسه هقولها طبعا. طب what about stress? Stress for example زي اللي احنا فيه دلوقتي. Somebody is waiting and was waiting for the results to be released وطلعت الريزلتس مش زي ما عايزين and now we are stressed. يعني we were stressed and then now we are stressed because they are going to change again the results. مين ده يا كنزي اللي عنده ستريس الايام دي؟ اديني كده example ان كان في evidences والمدرسه عطت لنا certain grade وكامبريدج وقعت الدنيا في الموضوع. هيرجعوها لكم تاني. ربنا استجاب لدعانا. عملتي هاشتاج ولا لا؟
ايوه طبعا
انا مليت الدنيا.
الحمد لله.
عايزين نعمل هاشتاج للهوم سكولينج. دول غلبانين دول والله ولا حد قابل حاجه منهم خالص. بصي بقى فهنا الستريس بيبقى فيه ادرينالين طبعا. فمثلا if you are crossing the road and a car is running over you كده, you're going to run quickly. Why? Because of this adrenaline. Even without thinking, you're going to work your muscles and disappear from in front of the car. But what does the adrenaline do بقى for the whole body? when it is released, it has an effect on several organs. It affects the heart. يعني دول بقى التارجت organs, okay? It affects the lungs. Adrenaline affects the muscles, affects the skin, the liver, and the iris of the eye. طب ايه ده بقى؟ بيعمل ايه بالظبط؟ السكين على فكره نسيت اقول هنا، خلينا اقوله الدايجستيف سيستم. طيب how does adrenaline affect the heart؟ بيعمل لي increase in the heart rate. طب واي بقى؟ لسه قايله لكم fight or flight، في الحالتين هنجري كويس، ف we need a very high amount of oxygen to be released to the muscles or to reach the muscles and to reach the brain in order to work faster and better. This means that the blood must reach these two organs in particular, muscles and brain. They must receive a higher amount of blood. That's why the heart rate increases. طب بتعمل ايه على اللونجز او البريذنج ريت؟ It dilates. Dilates يعني ايه يا جماعه؟ يعني widen. They widen the bronchi, the bronchioles, and of course, in order to allow more oxygen to enter to the alveoli or to the lungs, and of course, it will increase again, increasing the breathing rate. Yani we are going to breathe faster in order to get more and more air or more and more oxygen. طبعا air is carrying oxygen. That's why the bronchioles, they are going to dilate or to widen in order to allow more air inside to the alveoli. What about the muscles? المسلز دي حكاية بقى، يعني الشغل كله عليها تقريبا. الارteries in the muscles will dilate برضه. طب why بقى يا عبد الرحمن the arteries will dilate of the muscles? Can you give me a suggestion كده؟ Why the arteries are going to dilate, arteries of the muscles بالتحديد. Yes, dilate. Dilate means to widen. Opposite of constrict. Excellent. طبعا أنا محتاجة more blood بقى في إيه؟ In order to get very quickly more oxygen and more glucose to the muscles in order to respire, to get more energy. يبقى more blood to carry more oxygen طبعا and glucose to release more energy. طيب حاجة كمان. When the arteries of the muscles dilate, it means that they will carry more and more blood. ثم this will affect the blood of the body. فبلاقي in the skin will digestive system, their arteries will constrict. يعني they will narrow in order to save as much blood as possible. يعني whenever there is a part of the body more active than others, بتلاقوا أو sudden activity يعني بتلاقوا إن this organ needs more blood for its sudden activity. The rest of the organs, they constrict their blood vessels in order to allow more blood to this active organ. تمام زي إيه؟ When we are in Ramadan ويدوب لسه واكلين بقى المغرب وكده، you feel tired and you feel exhausted as if you are about to faint، وخصوصا في أول week of Ramadan. Why immediately after eating بنقعد كلنا كأننا مش عارفين ايه اللي بيحصل حوالينا. even ساعات الواحد بيبقى عايز ينام كده. Why? Because all the blood vessels of the body, they constrict to allow more blood to go to the digestive system. because the digestive system طبعا كانت قاعده في امان الله طول النهار، لقت هجوم of food. It needs to digest quickly. This is a sudden change. all the blood عامل زي عملية كأن the body is cooperating with each other. انت محتاج blood كتير، طب بلاش انا وخد انت. فطبعا the amount of blood will be less for all the organs, but the digestive system will receive the most blood of the body. هنا بقى muscles they need more blood, so the rest of the body وأكتر منطقة في البودي السكين, because the skin is the greatest organ of all the body, والdigestive system بعده على طول. These are two different parts of the body that occupy a large area. That's why they have a lot of blood vessels that will constrict to allow more blood to go to the muscles. طيب عشان كده لما واحد بيتخض ولا يحصل له ستريس ولا sudden يعني he saw something suddenly, they become pale. Okay, why? Because of constriction of the blood vessels. طيب what about the liver? الليفر بقى هي بتعمل storing لإيه يا كنزي كده فكريني؟ What does the liver store? Glycogen. Very good. فالجلايكوجين هنا we need more glucose to the muscles. The glycogen على طول will be broken down into glucose, والجلوكوز بياخدوا البلد to go to the muscles على طول. In order طبعا to release more energy، لأن الانرجي هنا تبقى oxygen and glucose بالتأكيد. It is carried طبعا by the blood to the muscles. طيب ايه دخل الايريس بقى في الموضوع ده؟ الايريس ده it's going to widen طبعا in order to allow more light to enter to allow better vision. واحد جاي عليه اي danger, he wants to see better in order to locate this danger and to run away from it او to attack it. فهنا هلاقي ان radial muscles that I just explained today of the iris, they are going to contract, allowing this iris, the pupil, to dilate or to widen. Dilation means to widen the pupil, to allow more light to enter the eye so we can see clearly. In this case شوفوا الادرينالين عنده كام target organ؟ كتير قوي. طيب أنا في الend at the end of this part حاطة لكم two tables, one of them about the different types of glands and what do they do. طبعا في منهم I said what do they do, لكن في حاجة زي الاستروجين والتستوستيرون they are related to the reproductive system, so they are going to be explained clearly in a coming chapter. طيب what is the difference بقى between the nervous system and the endocrine system? Nervous, يعني both of them they coordinate the body. So what's the difference between them? طبعا الnervous system. What is the nervous system formed of يا عبد الرحمن? Made of? What's the nervous system made of as a the type of cells? What are they called? ما هو nerves. بس which type of cells? Nerve cells. Okay. What is the scientific term? They are called what? Excellent. Excellent. Yes, both of you are excellent. عبد الرحمن كتبها بالامريكان وكنزي كتبتها بالبريتش. Okay. Here the endocrine cells we say that they a system. اقول ان الاورجنز they are fond of secretory cells. طيب, what about the transmission of information? Information here, they are transmitted in the form of impulse. حد بيسابقني اهو. Yes, thank you. هنا بيبقى in the form of impulses or electric impulses that of course will be carried with the nerve. But here we have hormones. طيب, next. Transmission. طيب, Kenzie, impulses, they are transported or they pass through what? مين؟ اكتب حالا. Neurotransmitter. طب هقول لك حاجة يا كنزي. Thank you يا عبد الرحمن. Neurotransmitter is only found in the synapses. بس أنا هنا بقول all through the body. يبقى المفروض برافو طبعا, neurotransmitter دي كلمة ضخمة. بس بتبقى في السينابسز only. أو the connection between the neurons. طب لما أحب أقول all over the body, يبقى impulses they are carried by nerves. Very good. Thank you, both of you. Nerves. But here, the hormones, they are carried by أنا هسيب الشات مفتوح. لا, they are formed by glands يا عبد الرحمن. هنا بقول transmission transmitted by the blood. Okay. طيب, what's the other difference? The speed of transmission. Or the speed by which the impulses move. I told you before, impulses, do they move fast or slow? Or slowly? I mentioned this before. Very fast. Very good. وقلت لكم بيوصل السبيد بتاعتها in the myelinated nerves ل 100 to 120 meters per second. لكن الهرمونز they move according to the speed of blood, يبقى طبعا slow movement. طيب, what else? Their effect بقى. دي احنا ما نعرفهاش بقى لسه. This is new. الإفكت بتاع أو النيرفس سيستم أو the effect of the impulses بيبقى yes, it is very fast effect, لكن of a short duration. يعني for example, if I need to contract a muscle, the impulse will come to allow the muscle to contract, and then خلاص, the muscle is going to relax. Once contracted, it's going to relax. No muscles are contracted يعني continuously. لا. لكن في الهرمونز yes, they act slowly. Oh yes, slowly. Thank you, عبد الرحمن. But of long duration. Well, do you know that we need little amount of hormones in order to act for a very long duration? يعني their effect lasts for a long time until another amount of hormone is produced. These are the differences. والquestion ده كتير قوي قوي بيجي في الexams to compare between the nervous and the endocrine system.